Hi, I'd like to talk to you today about why economists are wrong. Now, when I refer to economists, I don't refer to all economists. I know that in some countries, when they teach economy, or economics, I should say, when they teach economics, they teach a holistic approach to economics. I'm teaching about the kind of economists that tend to be dominant in America and certain other places, where it's really very much focused on profit and growth. Um, Obviously, it's not impossible to have profit without growth, but economists push for both. So what I want to do is just share with you a list of things that tend to be on the minds of pure economists, and then I want to share with you what's wrong with that. So let me see if I can't get my camera over here onto my list. There we go. Good golly. Probably got you upside down now. Alright. I'm not very good at making things that are very beautiful, so I apologize. So the first thing you can see on the list here is economics is math heavy. It's very pragmatic. It looks at things in a very practical manner, but it's also very sterile in the way it views the world. It basically, in pure economics, they basically reduce the world to how to maximize the wealth and power of a company or of a nation. So now I've used company here once or twice, but it doesn't actually have to be a company. It can be an organization. It can be a government. It can be anything. So first they look at the health of the company. Now when I say health, I don't mean physical health. I mean in terms of financial health. And then there's also the stability of the company, or which is related directly to the health. The more financially stable it is, the healthier the company is perceived to be. They look for increasing profits and growth, and they achieve things like that by using planned obsolescence, which is the practice of producing products that and even services now that will have to be replaced. Conspicuous consumerism is achieved by using psychology and marketing to drive consumers to buy, even when they don't necessarily need what they're getting. Scalability, it refers to using systems that can be scaled from a small system to a very large one without very many hiccups or problems. And that's very important in promoting growth. And then one of the things that you'll notice about a lot of businesses that ascribe to economics, or not ascribe to, prescribe or follow this kind of economics is income is top heavy. There's an inverse relationship between the number of people and the amount of wealth. So the people at the very bottom of the company or country will have the lowest amount of wealth. The people at the very top, even though they're not doing the same amount of work as these people down here, earn an amount of money that is vastly larger than what the people at the bottom earn. And it's often over the past I believe it's 3 decades, this has gone and become insanely different in terms of what the people at the bottom who actually, in my lifetime, the amount of money the people at the bottom, they're earning less than they used to when I was a kid. Even though maybe you look at the amount of money that they're earning and you say, oh, well, back in 1975 they were earning 50 cents an hour, or sorry, $3 an hour. Now they're earning $15 an hour. Well, something, and those aren't real numbers. I'm just making up numbers. What you see is that, and probably 3 is a bad number to use, but what you'll see is that the cost of living has risen faster than the income that the person is earning. 20 years ago, I was working in customer service and tech support. I started out earning about $25,000 a year doing that. And when I came back from Indonesia 20 years later, or sorry, 15 years later, the same company that I had worked for previously wanted to hire me back, and they wanted to hire me back at the same wages. And I was like, screw you, I'm not going to work for you guys. You guys obviously don't give a crap about your employees. And that's one of the reasons I had left them in the first place, was because it became apparent that really they weren't that concerned with employees that were interested in profits. And finally, they do a selective cost analysis. So when they're deciding how much to charge for something, they put into consideration future purchases because of planned obsolescence and conspicuous consumerism. They also look at the scalability, and they only look at direct costs. How much does it cost for the things that they need for their product, and how much do they have to buy in order to get a big discount, and things like that. Very direct things. They don't look at the cost of the pollution that they're creating, and so on and so forth. So in actuality, sometimes costs are way lower than realistically they should be. And this creates a great deal of trouble sometimes. Now, this is not an exhaustive list of some of the priorities and techniques of a pure economist-driven system. This is just a brief overview. And on the surface of this seems really great, because you can, using things like this, increase your profit over time. You can give more money to your investors. You can attract more investors, in fact. In addition to that, you can become extremely wealthy, especially if you're at the top end of the pyramid. If you're at the bottom end of the pyramid, and you're unlikely to ever realize any significant amount of income from your position with that company, because the company is not geared toward considering your value as a person or your needs. But basically, their chart will, keep on going up. Now, here's the first problem to that problem. Okay, so the problem to the problem. Sorry for saying it that way. The first problem here is that you can't expect to always grow. There are always going to be downward trends. Sometimes those trends will last minutes, hours, days, weeks, or sometimes even years. And whether your company is prepared for them or not can determine whether or not your company will survive them. And there are hidden costs associated with what you're doing. These are costs that you don't pay, but are paid for by other aspects that I am going to go through here. So, for example, one of the hidden costs is individual prosperity. When I say individual prosperity, I'm really referring to a global individual prosperity. So we see it in countries like America, where pure economics really dominates to a large degree, that individual prosperity is part of the so-called American dream, that you can come here and through hard work and effort and ingenuity and whatever, you can become rich. And that is true, that you can become rich, but it's also possible to become so rich that the amount of money you have no longer is meaningful. And when the amount of money you have is no longer meaningful to you, what it can buy ceases to become meaningful in the minds of some of the people who hold that much wealth. And when you don't value your money and you don't value what your money can buy, you start seeking alternative ways to satisfy yourself. And it can be exceedingly ridiculous sometimes. It can also be something where you can start taking advantage of the legal system. You can start abusing people and so on and so forth for your own personal pleasure. So, but individual prosperity is the idea that everybody deserves to have a wage that will allow them, number one, to pay their bills. Number two, it will allow people to save for the future. Number three, it will allow people to save for emergencies. And number four, to have some discretionary money, like money for vacations and gifts and things, and entertainment and stuff like that. but there are a large number of people around the world who don't get those basic needs met. Some of them only get certain of them met. Some of them may not have extra money for entertainment. Some of them may not have extra money for emergencies. Some of them may not have anything saved up for their future. Some of them may not have anything for the future or emergencies. Some of them may not even have entertainment, and some of them may not be earning enough money, which means that they don't have any of these three. And there are really, if you look at it, there are billions of people who fall into that category of not earning enough money to be able to do anything. Another hidden cost of pure economics is environmental health. If you take a look at the environmental situation in China right now, for example, and in other countries that are industrializing, you'll notice that they are rapidly damaging their environment, air pollution, water pollution, deforestation, loss of ecosystems and species. And these are all hidden costs to the environment, and they have a knock-on effect on us. When you take into consideration the costs to the environment, the real costs of any product on most services is going to be much higher than what we're actually paying for it, especially in countries like the U.S., where food prices are unnaturally low because of subsidization and economics policies. So that's another one. Then there are the social needs. And when I say social needs, I'm talking about the needs of society, the needs to help improve society, to improve the lot of each and every person. And I don't refer to welfare here. I'm not a proponent of giving somebody something for nothing. I believe very strongly that people should be made to earn what they have so that they appreciate it, because otherwise they tend to become entitled and feel that it's owed to them. I've actually encountered this in real life. I was helping a young man to get a government benefit a few months ago, and he was on the verge of restarting his construction business, and he said, I'm on benefits right now, but soon I expect that I won't be because I'll be doing construction work, which is a very lucrative trade. But I deserve this. I earned this. This is my right to get this. And, that's a very entitled way of looking at it, especially when he's on the verge of getting back on his feet. So, I understand, but still, we need to be able to improve the lot of humanity by improving society, and that is not something that happens under pure economics. Pure economics completely ignores psychology. It ignores the psychology of the employees. It ignores the psychology of society. And basically, it throws, I guess you could say, it throws our psyches under the wheels of a giant tank in favor of more wealth. And that may be great for the small number of people who really benefit from that increase in wealth, but the vast majority of people are sucked into the mire underneath that tank of economic progress, and there is no regard for the damage it does. Look at the damage that the shutdowns and lockdowns of the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic, look what they've done. Increases in addiction, abuse, divorce, homelessness, overweightness, and obesity, and so on and so forth. There are huge impacts that economics absolutely ignores as a hidden cost of its methodologies. And then there's biology, and this is both biology in terms of us humans and also biology in terms of animals, and how this can have a negative impact, because when the brain becomes diseased through duress, or not duress, but through stress and problems, the body will follow suit. You may start overeating, you may not exercise enough, you may become depressed. Your body will undergo changes as a consequence of the problems you have financially. And then there's back to ecology, in the broader sense. that when we make money and we don't take into consideration the impact on the ecology, or the ecosystems and the animals that are unwillingly involved in this, then we are adding another cost that isn't paid for, and it has long-term consequences for us as well as for all the species that are roped into it. And another problem is that we have limited resources on this planet. Yes, there are some resources that will last for a very long time, but there are other resources that will not. And yet, when we have a resource that is both plentiful and valuable, people who control the market will control the value of that product by limiting access to it, such as with diamonds and with gold. Both of those are extremely plentiful in the world, but because people who have large interests in gold and diamonds, they don't want to see the value of those things decrease. So instead of actually allowing the real amount of diamonds out into the market, they choke the amount of that is released every year, so that the price stays stable. Now, there are some benefits to that, but the reality of it is diamonds are only a girl's best friend because they have been marketed to be a girl's best friend. They certainly didn't used to be, and it's a falsehood. Diamonds are really not that valuable. So these are only a few of the problems that that are ignored by pure economy or pure economics. And I apologize for the many things that I have not included in this. I was just trying to give a brief overview of some of the situations that are created by the way we choose to look at economics. And I strongly encourage any university that is reputable and wants to actually make a difference should stop teaching pure economics as anything other than I guess we could say it is a very prideful and ignorant way of looking at the world, and it does us in the long run, and for many people in the short run, no good. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Ultimately, when our culture swings too far in the direction of logic and pragmatism, or too far in the direction of creativity and of the opposite end of the spectrum, basically, we become unbalanced. With the emphasis that we have in the United States on pure economics, the end result is environmental destruction, psychological destruction, and financial destruction. And this leads to an increased degree of criminality. It leads to an increase in violence and in warlike tendencies, an increase in conflictive conversations instead of compromising conversations. It creates a divide between groups of people, and as a consequence, we can see this reflected in the behavior of, say, politicians, where they're constantly working to undermine them, the opposing party or parties, so that they can win. They're constantly employing methods, legal and illegal, to make sure that their opponent doesn't win. And in doing so, they manipulate us into believing what they're selling, into not just endorsing, but taking it on as part of who we are. So, where a politician should just be viewed as somebody who has been hired to do a job, they become this icon, this person to put everything behind, and if somebody else can't see the value of this person, you don't want to associate with that person anymore. I've lost friends because I didn't like Trump, or I didn't like Clinton, or I didn't like Bush, or I didn't like somebody else. And this is a very divisive way of winning a political battle. It also is not just personally divisive, but it's nationally divisive. It's globally divisive, because the more you divide people up, yes, it gives a certain number of people a great deal of advantage, because instead of being focused on the people who are causing the problems, people are focused on each other, and a conflict is created to divert attention. But this divisiveness also means that we can't come into a state of harmony. We can't have a civil dialogue. You go somewhere and you state your belief, and instead of saying somebody just politely disagreeing with you and saying why, they will attack you. They'll call you a Karen or a conspiracy theorist, or they'll call you a quack, or they'll call you an idiot or something else, because there is no longer respect for people who don't believe what you believe. There is no acceptance of the fact that you might be wrong. And one thing that I've learned in my life is that I'm constantly wrong. I'm wrong on pretty much a daily basis a lot of the time. Often it's small things, but sometimes it's big things. And so it may be hard for me, but sometimes somebody will wake me up to the fact that, oh, I was wrong about this, and I will allow myself to listen to what they have to say. I'll evaluate it, and I will try to determine if what they're saying is correct. And if I discover that, oh, they're right and I'm wrong, then I will, of course, change my viewpoint on that issue and look at it in the way that they're looking at, or look at it at least in a modified way from previously. If we keep on swinging in the direction of pragmatism, which is something I value, function over form, and STEAM over creativity. And when I say STEAM, I mean science, technology, engineering, math, and whatever the other one is. I forgot. Architecture, maybe. When we continue to separate and minimize one half of who we are, we're not in balance anymore. That's why it's important to have logic, but it's also important to have a cultivation of proper emotional states. That's why it's important to be able to analyze and think critically, which many people don't have the ability to do because it's not taught in school. Even though you're taught math and science and things like that, you're not taught quite often how to think critically, because politicians and business people don't want you to be able to do that, because then they can't divide and conquer. But we also have to have this development of our society, of people from the individual level to the family level to the societal level. We have to have a development and improvement so that problems of psychological damage become decreased. People who are mentally unhinged by their situation become more stable and less likely to mentally unhinge other people. And because, if you look at it right now, there are a large number of people who, often because of financial stressors and health stressors and things like that, they become a different person. It's even happened to me. Okay, you have your set of values, but suddenly, because of all the stress in your life, some of those values start to be set aside because your brain is no longer functioning normally, and you struggle to maintain that moral viewpoint while also dealing with health and financial and other issues. And often it ends up in bad things happening. If we in America don't learn to put into balance everything, a holistic way of viewing all things as being equally important instead of only certain things being important, we are going to end up in a society that is so dysfunctional and destructive it could tear apart the world. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great day.